Yep.
Neil, welcome back.
Show number 900 and a what?
We said 900, maybe 89.
We're getting getting close to 1,000 show, TC.
It's funny how when you get close to 1,000, you forget how many there really are.
We don't really give a shit.
Yeah, no one cares.
Do we care?
We don't. They just continue.
But the 1,000 show, like I remember the 1,000 show.
Okay, all I know is our guest
Is
has CIA secrets that he can talk about now. Is that true?
CIA operative. Okay. That's it.
and
Fred's good.
Yeah.
Fred's good.
Who's your guest? Oh, we had a really big
Yeah.
So, am I not wrong to say that we have secret government
Did you see?
stuff that
Who was he with?
talk about?
Who was the photo you saw him with?
Who was that? It was somebody big in politics. Do you remember?
Yeah. No, I don't remember.
Okay. Big wig in the CIA.
Yeah.
Top secret stuff.
Top secret.
We're gonna break
Uh-huh.
on our 1,000th show.
Yeah.
That's amazing. But tonight, we're gonna learn about other top secrets from Santa Cruz. Fred Keeley's back.
No, let's not say he's back. Fred Keeley showed up. Fred Keeley. Fred Keeley.
And just so we had a big date with Fred, and he showed us.
Yeah. Ghost. It's called, the word is ghosted us.
So you know when you're at the table waiting for your date,
Yeah.
you're like eating an appetizer, having a cocktail,
Right.
And the date calls and says I'm not showing up.
We got stuck with Jimbo Phillips.
That worked out pretty well that night.
Yeah, it was fun.
Let me just ask two questions real quick.
Two?
Are you registered to vote in the city of Santa Cruz?
No.
Are you registered to vote in the city?
No,
of Santa
sir. So fuck off.
That's the issue.
Fred Keeley just decided it's a good date to stand up. Well,
Yes.
Right.
we did hear there was an emergency that night.
There was.
There was a big thing.
Yeah.
Thing was
The
going
big
on.
thing was
Big
going
thing.
on, yeah.
Big.
So, folks, just so you know, we are in Santa Cruz. We got the mayor here tonight. It's really amazing. I love that. The mayor.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
You're very kind.
You're the chief. Well, I always say, Fred Keeley's Mr. Santa Cruz.
Wow.
Yeah.
Is there a Mr. Santa Cruz you know of?
There's a lot of people who could lay claim to that before I could lay
I could-
Who comes to mind for number one that you may think?
Well, let's see. I've got a bunch
Bruce
of Mr.
McPherson?
Santa Cruz. Bruce McPherson.
Right.
Kim Stoner.
Also, man.
No, surfer, right?
Yeah.
Around town. A bunch of women around town can be Mr. Santa Cruz. Cynthia Matthews can be Mr. Santa Cruz.
Yeah.
as far as I'm concerned. There's a bunch of people around town. No,
I think Hillary Bryant. I'm going to call Hillary Bryant
Hillary, right.
Hillary, Mr. Santa Cruz.
Yes.
Right, a lot of people.
And we've endorsed some females.
But hey,
I
I
think.
can-
Gail Pellerin.
Gail Pellerin?
Yeah.
Yeah, she
I got
lives, she lives over on the west side.
My-
Yeah.
My last job I ever had, I got fired from because of Fred Keeley.
Do you need to tell this
Yeah.
story every single time?
Yeah.
I'm with you and anyone. Like I was the problem.
Right?
Oh, Neil.
Ken.
Obviously, you're really been
I was-
very effective. Was that a
Still,
Yeah.
it's every time I see his face, I'm like, you mother. Yeah.
If I understood it correctly, you got fired from an unpaid job. Is that right?
That's right. From a volunteer job. It wasn't even a.
You know, you might want to think more about yourself and take a little introspection about that.
Yeah.
Can you reword that? Fred Keeley saved me from a job I wasn't getting paid.
Okay, all right, yeah. He did.
Can
We
say
both,
that?
yeah, I left, yeah.
So let's reword that. Everybody, Fred Keeley saved Neil
Yeah,
from a
he did.
job he wasn't getting paid.
We reworded it. I felt much better. I felt much better about that.
It was like wage theft or something. I was helping you.
Yeah, that was pretty funny.
Before we get into
Oh.
it, how was that sushi by the way?
Dude.
Fantastic sushi. We have a little, just to show everybody, this is what's left over. The freshest bluefin on the planet. We're saving this for Fred's wife. Yeah, we'll take that home tonight.
She will be very happy about it.
Fred, a lot of stuff going on.
We talk about
Santa Cruz.
we,
Yeah,
want,
let's
we
welcome you
met
back.
before. We had a pregame. We did our pregame. What do you want to talk about? Prop 36.
Well, no. First off, I think the number one thing we want to talk about is housing. It's a huge part of your job. It's a huge part of the state of California's requirement as an official in Santa Cruz for you to jump through a hoop. And to a lot of people watching, they're frustrated by these huge buildings. In fact, I had a business on Pacific Avenue. I was at the Palomar having lunch, and a friend of ours who has a business came in and said, there's nobody even living in that building. And my wife and I went downtown a couple nights ago and ate at Alderwood, and there was lights on in that building, and we saw TVs on. There are people living in that building. Can you inform us why, first off, there are these 7-story buildings? Are they 7 stories? 8-story buildings downtown.
Oh, the ones that are there now.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Yeah.
6, 7 stories.
6 or 7 stories. So let's just so we can let them know why they're here, because I know there's a reason why they're here, and if you could, we'll start with that, and then we'll talk about what possibly in the future could happen.
Sure.
But how we got here, can you explain that a little bit? I know you are the guy.
Well, I don't know about that, but I can explain it. I'll try. I'll give my explanation for it. So it really has something to do, but not exclusively to do, with Santa Cruz. This is really state action. Governor Newsom came into office 7 years ago, 6, 7 years ago, and what he was facing was a state with a housing crisis. 40 million people, big state. Many communities had not kept up with the expanding population of the state, including the city of Santa Cruz and the county of Santa Cruz. In the 70s, 80s, 90s, the most important political value in our community was to manage our growth. The University of California had arrived a few years before that. The Silicon Valley had exploded as the most powerful economic engine in the world and showing no signs of slowing down. So the decision in our community was, let's see if we can control our own destiny. And I was in office as a county supervisor and so on during those periods of time, also in the state legislature. Things began to change in the early-ish 2000s, and that was the price of the product of housing. And you don't have to be the chair of the Federal Reserve Board to figure this out. You limit the supply and not the demand, then the price of the product is going to go up, and that's what's happened in California, especially on the coast, and certainly in the Monterey Bay area. Governor and the legislature in 2017 started to pass dozens and dozens of bills, about 120 bills now, that all are designed, by their admission, is designed to tear down the barriers to development. That's what they call it. So they are now saying that a lot of the authority that cities used to have with regard to growth and development, we have about 20% of that authority left. The state said, you're abusing that authority to say no. And so we are going to require you to say yes. And so for the city of Santa Cruz, for example, over the course of the next 8 years, we have to authorize the building of 4,000 new housing units in the city of Santa Cruz. So now we're going to get to your question about downtown.
Can I interject one thing? When
Sure.
you say housing units, is that beds or houses?
That is units which would be an apartment, a home, a whatever. But
ADU?
An ADU
yeah,
fits
so
in that as well.
4,000 things with beds in it.
There you
or
go.
a bed. Yeah.
Yeah, but not bedrooms, right?
Right, yeah.
We're,
Right.
Okay, so we're talking about saying 4,000 new housing units. And so I think, for example, when I ran for mayor a couple of years ago, I'd talk to people and knock on the door and say, hi, I'm Fred Keeley, I'd love to be your mayor. What's on your mind? Instantaneously, they said 2 things: housing affordability and homelessness.
This was in Santa Cruz County, in your district.
In the city of Santa Cruz,
Yeah.
because I'm elected citywide.
Right.
So I listened to that, and I asked people, what do you mean by that? And that's where a lot of the agreement ended. What I mean, some voter says, what I mean by that is, my kid can't live here, this is not right, nobody can afford to live here anymore, etc., etc. I want more housing that is affordable. Another person may mean, I see those buildings go up, I don't like that, this is too much housing, too much change too quickly. Now, voters have the privilege of not having to reconcile seemingly irreconcilable positions. They can say, I want more affordable housing, and I don't want a bunch of apartments in my neighborhood. They elect people to try to reconcile those. So that's what I call the downtown. Smart communities who are required to grow, wouldn't you rather grow in height and density in your downtown, along with retail and commercial and entertainment that is in there as well by design, than to say we're going to see apartments, 6, 7, 8-story apartment buildings popping up over every neighborhood. Now, I'm not saying that by building downtown there will be none of that in neighborhoods, but there will be less of that in
But
neighborhoods by a fair
people
amount.
here remember downtown as downtown what it used to be.
Well, that's
It had character. It had character. It was Santa Cruz.
And I think that's fair. I think that's fair because I think one of the things that the state has done is, look, I raised my hand, swore to uphold the Constitution of the United States and the state of California and all of the laws. I don't get to choose not to obey the law, not to fulfill the law.
Right.
I'm trying to get out of this the best thing going forward for what our city is going to look like for the next 50 years, in the downtown especially. What can we do? The state has taken away a lot of the, what I would call the aesthetic authority of the city, saying, you know, that building just goes straight up. Why don't you articulate this way, or why don't you have this or that or so on? We can't do that anymore. Let me give you an example of what we cannot do anymore. Cannot do. Follow this. The law now says if a developer comes in and wants to develop 30 units or more, and they're within a quarter mile of a transit stop, we can require no on-site parking.
Okay.
There's 125 of these bills. I had my chance in the legislature to vote on matters. This wasn't the issue when I was there. So I don't get to do that anymore. Now the mayor has to operationalize this. Here's my prediction. I told you this earlier.
Yeah.
In that south of Laurel area, because that's what people are talking about. They're talking about, you know, along River Street or along Front Street, south of Laurel, all that. Most people I talk to actually like what's going on along the river because it's going to reactivate the river walk. And the rest of the community is going to have a whole new experience.
And the Riverwalk
and
needs
I think
that.
that's a real good thing.
I agree.
But here's the thing. I think where the Warriors build through the private sector, they build the arena. Around that is the housing. People are concerned about what is that housing going to be? Is that going to be 8, 10, 12 stories? Based on what I know right now, on what the numbers are, how that's working out, how they're trying to pencil everything out, what we're doing with housing, what we're going to do with transportation, all these issues down here. I'll be shocked if there's a building taller than the Palomar. I'll be shocked if there's a building taller than that building that got built at Laurel.
Yeah.
And the one that's under construction next to it. I'll be shocked.
But nobody's going to question. Nobody's going to question. Who's going to question you?
Well, everybody will if they're smart. But let me just say, here's why I think that's the case. When you get to a certain height, you have to shift to steel construction.
Right. Yeah.
And when you do that, how high you would have to go to recover all of those increased costs is not what they want to do. That's not the private development community. That is not of interest to them. They have a huge market for 6, 8, 12-story, 6 or 8-story buildings that have commercial and residential in a designed entertainment district. There's a huge market for that. And it is, who are these people? They're from their mid-20s to their mid-40s. They're people that don't have their hand on the first rung of the homeownership ladder, but they'd like to get there. There's going to be opportunities to make that happen and so on. Now, let me say, that's what's going on there. But how can, as a mayor, how can I deal with these two issues beyond sort of the planning concept? How do I get to that issue that people
who do you select? Who do you select as going to be building these buildings?
Well, the private sector.
They come to the city.
I mean, is it a bidding process or is it
no? They apply to build, and they will build what they're going to build. We don't get involved in their money deal. Their money deal's their money deal. That's not. We're looking at the planning and building issues around that. But let me say this: when people we're saying we want more affordable housing. Most of them did mean, when I probed that issue with them, of the housing that's going to be built, so many people are like, nah, I don't like all this housing that's going to be built, but of that housing that's going to be built, I want more of it to be affordable than what I hear now is going to be affordable. And I want it to be more deeply affordable. That's what I heard from people about affordable housing. So the question then becomes, how do you get that? And there was a measure on the ballot 2 years ago, which was called an empty home tax. If you didn't live in your house a certain number of days a year.
Vacation rental.
Oh no,
Or
your house
if
that
it's
you
empty.
live in.
Right.
And empty was defined as a certain number of days a year, and every homeowner had to attest to how many days a year they'd been in their house, and if it was, you weren't in your house enough,
Who was policing?
you had to pay a $6,000 fee to the city. You'll never guess in a million years. The voters thought that wasn't a particularly good bill, but they didn't say, we don't like what the money would be spent on. We don't like the way you're raising the money. It was the wrong tax. It wasn't the wrong spending, it's the wrong tax. How do I know that? Because other than that, every single time in the last 12 years, city voters have had a chance to vote on a city, a county, or a state measure on affordable housing. No matter what the county has done, no matter what the state has done, the voters of the city of Santa Cruz vote for it.
Do you know somebody?
So here's the deal.
Go ahead.
So here's the point. I've been working with folks literally right, left, and center for 23 months now to help fashion an affordable housing funding measure for the ballot next year in the city of Santa Cruz. And we have got the very thoughtful engagement from Santa Cruz Together, very thoughtful engagement from the Santa Cruz Realtors, very thoughtful engagement from people way out on the progressive end of the spectrum, working together for 23 months now, and I think that we're getting real close to a final product that the public can be asked, do you want to support this in a special election next year? Housing Santa Cruz County, one of the really wonderful organizations in town, does real good work on affordable housing. They sponsored a public gathering in Santa Cruz at the police community room the other night. Lots of people showed up, talk about how this particular measure has come together, asking the public for more input and so on. It's very close to coming together, but the point I'm trying to make here is this. This community understands that what we get to control as much as possible is what the character and nature of this growth is going to mean in our community. We only have 20% of the authority we used to have, but whatever we have, we should leverage that like crazy. They didn't take 100% of our authority away and send it up to Sacramento. But that 20% we still have, we should jealously guard it and effectively use it as this development happens in our community.
Yeah. Do you know somebody, Fred, who's got affordable housing? Do you know anybody?
Yes, I do.
You do?
In fact, my next door neighbor.
Yeah.
I live in a home that was
a beautiful home,
the farmhouse of an apple and walnut orchard.
Right.
And my predecessors, I'm only the third owner in 135 years. My predecessors took what was the big parcel that farmhouse was on, and they went to the city 20 years ago and got a planned unit development and divided the backyard into 4 separate parcels.
Yeah.
And one of those is an affordable housing unit by requirement. And the woman who lives there is a really nice lady and so on. 2 houses down from me is a Section 8 rental. It's a family that I've known for, I don't know, about 15 years.
Yeah.
They're really wonderful.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
not
yeah.
saying...
No.
You raised this earlier.
Yeah.
You raised this earlier because you said, you asked people, do you know anybody that has affordable housing?
I don't know anybody. I
And
know maybe
you don't know
one.
anybody, and you don't know people who know people.
Yeah.
You do.
I do.
Okay.
But,
But is that
trying to say-
20% below market? What is? How they classify affordable?
Well, how that's defined is by income categories defined by the federal government, operationalized by the state government. It's divided into moderate income, low income, very low income, extremely low income. And then those are a certain percentage of the area's median income.
Okay.
100%, 85%,
Right.
whatever it is. So
Yeah.
that's all defined in law. We don't make that up or something. So that defines what is affordable housing. And what we know for a fact is that there's no such thing. Check this language. It's really important.
I'll be checking your language.
If anybody says, if you're in a conversation with somebody about affordable housing and they use the phrase low-cost housing, right? You know how that phrase gets used, right?
Yeah.
It's an inaccurate phrase. There is no such thing. There is no such thing as low-cost housing. There's only affordable housing, which is to say it is housing that is subsidized.
It's subsidy.
You either subsidize the construction or you subsidize the rent.
Right.
You have to do one or the other because there's no such thing as low-cost housing. You don't get to say, well, I'm going to build this for poor people so I can throw out all the building codes. There's no such thing.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's really a question, how do you make the housing that is going to be built? And by the way, what I'm just talking about, this affordable housing funding measure, not one penny of that will go to help a developer meet their affordable housing requirements. We're going to ask everybody else to go subsidize the developers. Here's what it is. If the developers are required to do 20%, and they get it all figured out how they can do 20%, and we say, I'll tell you what, let's make it 25 and we'll do the 5. Or we say, you're doing 20%, but you're doing moderate and low. I'll tell you what, let us subsidize this part of it and make it very low and extremely low.
Okay.
See where we're going?
Right,
Let's
I get
make
it.
more affordable housing, and that housing we built, let's make more of it more affordable. That then lets people build the kind of life you've been able to have in this community. Stay
Right.
here,
Yeah.
intergenerationally. You and your wife work here, et cetera, et cetera. Now you, I don't know, Neil.
Well, and also going back to what you said, my children don't live here anymore.
My son was born and raised here.
Yeah,
he's-
no, and so
He's gone.
my
No,
kids-
he's still here.
He's still here.
Oh,
Okay,
yeah.
there
My
we go.
kids were born and raised here, and they don't live here any longer. But what I was going to say is also the problem is we're Beverly Hills on the beach, you know, and that's a problem with this Santa Cruz, the Silicon Valley, and you know we are paradise, and paradise comes with a price, and that is difficult. My wife had a question. This is a very important question for you.
Okay.
She said, "Ask Fred, how many pairs of shoes does he have?"
Well,
Oh!
let's get to the. I'm sure the actual question is how many pairs of Jordans do I have?
Well, or something with checkerboards on it. I mean, she's seen you with some fancy.
Oh, but,
there we go.
and now he gets.
Yeah.
And now he's got this.
Hey, by the way, these are not inexpensive.
No.
So
I have 8 pairs of Jordans.
8 pairs.
8 pairs of Jordans.
Okay, and how many?
6 pairs of cowboy boots.
Okay.
And 2 pairs of hard man old shoes, you know, that I have to wear when I'm doing mayor stuff.
Yeah.
I feel like I've seen you in some fancy,
No, the best dressed-
wingtips or something too. There's
There's
some other pairs.
Oh, TC.
That's what I say, the old
TC.
man hard shoes.
Okay.
I'm a little disappointed when he showed up in tonight. The hoodie.
Yeah, he was
Because
casual.
I was gonna. He is the best dressed man in Santa Cruz.
It's Friday, so
If I had showed all gussied up, you'd have busted me because I showed all gussied up. When I show up trying to be man of the people with you guys,
I know,
then I'm
right.
not dressed up enough.
I'm going-
There ain't no
Honey,
winning.
I'm going to a fucking skate shop.
normally you're the best dressed guy at any event. I give that to you.
Well, let me say this. I am the best dressed man at this event.
That's right, you are. Yeah, you are.
You're wearing
Yeah.
Jordans.
Hey, what do you got, TC?
Yeah.
No,
Eyes on, right?
I got none.
And by the way, we are big fans of Nike. So,
Nice,
I
nice.
get you.
I
for
did
that.
notice that.
Yes.
I did notice.
I want to move on from housing because we all know it's a struggle in Santa Cruz, and there's not an easy answer. The state of California has a demand to build these houses. We're doing the best we can, right? Can you say that? I mean, you're doing everything you can to satisfy the constituents of the town and the demands of California.
That's what I'm trying to do.
Yeah.
And I have colleagues on the city council who are trying to do the same thing. These people, now, it's very interesting. Now these people represent districts instead of representing the whole city. Now
Yeah.
the council members, the six council members
Yeah.
represent a district. I'll tell you, nothing sort of focuses your mind like representing a district.
Right.
In terms of development and growth.
With
and
district being
everything else.
different,
It's like-
district being different to supervisor.
Yeah,
Right?
just within the city of Santa
Okay,
Cruz,
yeah.
there's now 6 council districts.
Okay.
And those folks expect, because you went around and talked to them in your campaign, you're a neighborhood politician, you know the neighborhood, you know this street from that street, this park's a little problem, you got a little thing over here, etc. They expect that you'll take that knowledge and operationalize that in all ways for that district. So, for example, when you had at-large elections, everybody's responsible and nobody's responsible, right, for some neighborhood problem.
Well,
did we talk about 36 earlier?
No, before we leave this subject, I just one more thing I want to talk about. How involved is UCSC in creating affordable housing? Because I feel like their students are probably in more of a need than anybody.
As he said earlier, it's a military base.
But I know,
Right.
but maybe, well,
Right.
but, and maybe you can clarify that, because if you ask people in Santa Cruz, they sort of feel like UCSC takes more than they give back, and I think, either that's educated or uneducated in how they think about that. But I think a lot of the residents of this town feel that UCSC is kind of a tick in the side of Santa Cruz. And as far as housing goes, can you explain to people who are watching if they're contributing or taking? Maybe.
Sure. They do both. And when I arrived here in 1977, it was not a result of going to UCSC. I was raised in San Jose. I went to San Jose State. As soon as I got my undergraduate degree, I moved over here because my family came here a lot when I was a kid. And I knew pretty clearly where I wanted to be when I was a grown-up. And so when I graduated, I came here. So I'm not part of the people who came here because of the university. I'm more like the guy who came here because it's paradise on the beach.
We are together. I was the same way.
Right.
I get it.
I happen to think that if you are a host community of the University of California, you have a blessing in your midst. This is the University of California is arguably the finest public higher education institution in the country. Now, the people who go to the University of Michigan will argue with you about that, but I think it's if it isn't first, the universities in the top 2 or 3 public universities in the country. We are very fortunate to have that, and I think that when we look at the cultural, intellectual, spiritual, economic component parts of the community, the university, we would be very different without it. And I think most of what it does is quite good. Now,
so you want it to stay. You want it to stay. You wouldn't want it to leave.
It's never leaving.
It's never leaving, but
Never leaving.
just hypothetically.
No. I think we're a better community by having the university. Having said that, I think they are grossly irresponsible with regard to housing. They do not tie enrollment growth to housing. That is the fundamental problem between the city and the university. And none of this is the responsibility of Chancellor LaRive. They don't make these decisions at the chancellor level. These are regental level decisions. The regents of the university and the office of the president make this decision. It is a full-on business decision. They do not make this decision the way they make a decision about building a classroom. This is a business for them.
Right.
And so they
is it more of a business? Is it more of a business than a place of education?
No, the housing thing. No, I want to stay on the housing for a second here.
Okay.
The housing, I think they've been grossly irresponsible. Every chancellor talks a very good game. They cannot deliver, so they should stop talking about it. And the regents should build a hell of a lot, not a little more, a hell of a lot more on-campus housing.
Right.
And as mayor, my goal is to tie their long-range development plan to a condition that says their enrollment growth is tied to their housing growth on campus. And we are in litigation over the long-range development plan right now.
Yeah.
We've had multiple conversations, myself, the chancellor, the folks from system-wide, and we cannot break through with them on this issue. And I told you a story earlier about when I was in the legislature and the very large view that the University of California has of itself. It is constitutionally independent. You read the California Constitution, there's a provision of the Constitution, the state of California, that exists in no other constitution, any other state in the United States,
Which they're taking
where the University of California has a great deal of autonomy. So, for example, the legislature can't pass bills that affect the University of California to any meaningful degree. They can the CSU system, but not the University of California.
Does that give them the right to say housing's your problem and
They-
not ours?
Yes, that's the short. Sure, yeah.
Is that it?
The housing is
Yeah.
until they decide that the business deal makes sense to them, and then they do it.
And
So
until-
it is more of a business than it is an education.
No, the housing is a business deal,
Okay.
yes, but
Right.
not the institution.
Okay.
The overall institution
Yeah.
is an education institution and a damn good one. But yes, the housing operation is a business operation. It is unlike anything else in the university. Their housing policy and how they build and make decisions and how it has to pencil out and everything else. And they're, we did a little thing over on the west side recently, some apartments that Red Tree got involved in with the university and us. We made some changes on an improved development there, and now it's going to be student housing over on the west side. Now, that's a really good thing. It's good. They need to do that on campus mostly. Some off campus, that's fine. They can build, but they need to build it on campus.
Yeah.
They are a city on a hill. I didn't make that up.
Yeah.
They made that up. They
Right.
call themselves that, not me. And they're sitting on a hill that act like one. Build housing.
It seems
They're,
like
they're
that's
exempt from these
Is that a big-
125 laws. They're exempt from these 125 laws that I have to live by as a mayor. The chancellor's the mayor.
That's another town.
It's a city on a hill. Police, fire, housing, parks, recreation, public works,
Separate. It's all
everything.
separate. It's separate.
But they don't follow the laws.
No, they're their own.
So they gotta snap out of this.
Yeah. Okay.
Interesting.
We'll change the
just
subject.
But a little segue to that is that in the 70s, the home I live in, the garage was turned into a bedroom. Recently, I was red tagged, and I've been working with my architect to try to make it an ADU. And what's funny is I have 2 off-street parking spots, 2 parking spots in front of my house. And they said you can make it an ADU, but you need 3 off-street parking spots.
Well, you can't govern that.
So I have to make my grass a cement slab.
Here's my proposal. Go down, tell them you want to build 30 units, and they'll tell you you don't have to put any off-street parking.
That's my point.
And then,
Is that
And you're
here
free
I
and clear.
am.
You're free and clear.
then you're good.
Well, and the thing about
my
it is, here I am as like
Just take that-
a property owner. I'm trying to like get a low-income home.
Welcome to my world.
Exactly. I feel your pain, Fred.
And I feel
Yeah,
like
because I'm like, shit, I gotta
Now
pay
you're-
my grass.
you're in the unincorporated
I
area,
am.
right?
Yeah, I'm counting. Yeah.
I'm assuming that'd be Supervisor Manu Koenig would like to hear from
Manu.
you. I'm
Yeah,
sure.
and yeah. I
Manu's
work-
coming on in a couple of weeks
Is
too.
he? I'll talk to him.
Good guy. Oh yeah, you got to stick him with that.
Manu wants to come on a no election a year.
We're gonna say adios, Manu, and we'll talk about my driveway.
He and I have breakfast once a month at
Yeah.
the Santa Cruz Diner.
Oh, you do?
Good
Yeah.
guy.
He's a
Yeah.
good guy. Yeah, we like having
You
him.
know, and what's funny is what he says off the camera is so pure, true, and what's reality.
Yeah.
Versus like sometimes what's on the camera. But I really do think that what he says is correct and will be the future. But we're gonna segue.
There we go.
Yeah, we're segueing to the
36?
Proposition 36, which I voted.
Here we go.
I voted yes for, and the reason being is that I am a retail owner who has been
Why don't you
overwhelmed.
explain what it is?
Okay, Proposition 36 was overwhelmingly voted for by the state of California. Every county voted yes. The Proposition 36 was we're going to make it if you do small crime 3 times, it's a felony. Is that how it works?
Let me do it this way. There were a whole bunch of crimes that were felonies. Certain kinds of theft, et cetera, et cetera. And Prop 47, a decade or so ago, changed those. This is the voters, changed them from felonies to misdemeanors. Prop 36, November's ballot, returned them to felonies. So those things that we made misdemeanors, it's out of control. The theft and the shoplifting and the whatever and the whatever and the whatever, but just whatever. And people said, no, we're changing those back to felonies. So that's what happened.
Right.
Yeah,
And it's like the 3 strikes kind of.
Did it make any difference to you?
Well, it hasn't happened yet. It starts in January.
Right.
My point being is, just recently, we're talking days ago, I had a shoplifter. We caught her. She dropped her $500 sunglasses during this
And
ordeal.
they said Audi
And
keys.
she called me and says, I want my sunglasses back. And she says to me, I said, well, you stole. You have to pay for what you stole. I'll give you your sunglasses back. You know what she said to me? I know the law. That's what she said.
Wow.
What I stole from you is not a crime. And I honestly wanted to put a needle in my eye because it's anybody should know if you steal, it's a crime.
So let's take a look at this, because I thought it was one of the 2 more fascinating outcomes in the state election. Was Prop 36, a fascinating outcome. As you indicated, it passed in every single county in the state of California.
Does that happen often,
Alpine
Fred?
Not often.
Okay.
And usually what you'll see in that kind of a, sort of, if you will, a crime and punishment issue, you'll see the coast, a lot of the coast will not be as supportive of that kind of, as you move eastward and move off the coast and move eastward and north, those tend to be received more favorably. So it's worth paying attention. What was that? So I think a way to look at it is, it's the only statement voters could make statewide on crime and punishment. I think it mattered less what was the question. You know, do you want to return these from misdemeanors to felonies, or do you want to have, felonies for spitting on the sidewalk, or, whatever. Whatever the question would have been, it was the only way voters could make a statement statewide about crime. Now, if you were in Alameda County, you could also make a statement by recalling your district attorney, which is what they did.
Right.
Or you can replace the district attorney in Los Angeles, who's very progressive, with a more mainstream kind of district attorney. But Santa Cruz, Monterey, Colusa County, Imperial County, they didn't have those. They didn't have that choice. The only way they could say, how am I feeling about crime, is vote on 36.
Right.
And they voted for it.
Yep.
Now, that even is true when you break down, how did Prop 36 do in the city of Santa Cruz? Because there are measures, for example, on the November ballot, which there was a measure statewide which would have lowered the threshold for voters to approve affordable housing bonds. The voters said no to that statewide. Every county, including Santa Cruz County, but in the city of Santa Cruz, the voters voted for it, 60% in favor of it.
Why? Yeah.
Because it's about affordable housing. And they're making a statement about they want to do something on affordable housing.
Yeah.
But let me not get distracted. That was the other one that was interesting to me. But on this crime and punishment question, now comes the issue, what does the governor and the legislature do about this? Because this didn't have any money. This wasn't a bond measure to build new prisons.
Yeah.
This wasn't a bond measure to build county jails.
Fred, is this to enact what was passed? Is that expensive?
Well, let's think about it. A whole bunch of misdemeanors are now going to be charged with felonies. And so when that happens, the people who are convicted of that are going to do felony time, which is to say more than a year in prison. Misdemeanors, you can be sentenced up to a year in county jail. Felonies, it's more than a year. And you don't do that in county jail, you do it in state prison. Well, state isn't going to build new prisons.
No.
Governor isn't going to say, and there's no
room.
And there was no money in this measure to do that. So what are you gonna do about the criminals people want to see incarcerated?
Right.
I'm not arguing whether this is a good or bad idea. This is what are you gonna do about it if you're the governor? So the governor and the legislature are gonna look at it. I predict the following is gonna happen. The governor comes out with his budget on January 10th, and there's not one penny in there to build one more prison bed or cell. Not one. He's also not going to be one penny in there given to counties to build more county jails.
So what's he do?
What he will do is, I think, he'll say, here's some diversion things we should do. Here's drug and alcohol counseling. Here's mental health counseling. Here's this. And the voters are going to say, I'm sorry, not good enough and not close to it.
Okay.
And then the governor's going to say, I'll tell you what, legislature, give me a bill that allows boards of supervisors to put county jail bond measures on the ballot and pass that with a majority vote of the voters. I think the governor's going to shift this whole thing to county boards of supervisors with no money. Give them the ability.
He has nowhere else to go.
That's my thought. Well, he does.
Right?
I heard
He does. He could try to do it differently, but I'm going to guess this all is going to belong to boards of supervisors and locals and local voters.
Right.
And if the local voters, in essence, a way to think about the governor and his attitude about this is, I think the governor is not above punishing the voters for what they did.
But what's he do as a business owner? With that person that's got the 500 pair of sunglasses, what's he?
Oh well, now that's a crime, and the sheriff will come. It's the unincorporated area. Sheriff has to come out and arrest him. They'll put him in jail.
We recently had a major crime. It was $900 worth of stuff. They came in and grabbed it and ran. We had photographs of them. I found out who they were before the cops showed up because they drove their damn car to the store.
Right.
And I paid $5 to a DMV search thing. And I found out exactly who it was. That not a thing happened to him. The DA declined to prosecute. I saw an interview today. I believe it was the new governor of New Jersey.
Let me jump in on this. And that's neither the sheriff's fault nor the DA's fault. Because if the sheriff arrested that person, the DA prosecuted that person, there would be no place, literally no place for that person to do their sentence time.
They sleep in the plastic boat at the county jail. I've seen them. They stack them up 8 feet tall. They're a plastic, looks like a boat, and they sleep in it at night. They pull them out and stack them. I heard a thing today from the new governor of New Jersey, and he said, here's your choices. You can join the military. You can pay a dramatic fine. You can go to rehab. Or you can go to jail.
You have four choices.
That's your choices for what is going on in California.
Oh,
I heard
in New Jersey?
I heard today on an interview, that's what he said. And when they joined the military thing, I was like, wow, that's like going to jail.
Right.
You know, like you're going to be going to boot camp, bro. It's kind of an interesting kind of angle to it personally. You know, it's like learn some discipline, learn some respect, get yelled at, like you can't take drugs.
I'm going to make it really clear. I'm not somebody who believes that reinstituting mass incarceration is a good idea in California. I don't believe that. I do believe that our prison system is a disgrace, not only in California, but in the United States. It's a disgrace. The rest of the civilized world doesn't do what we do with our prisons. I think the only actual punishment there should be is depriving someone of their freedom. Everything after that should be unconstitutional. And I mean that. You shouldn't have to, when you get sentenced to a California state prison, you are sentenced to joining a prison gang and sentenced to be raped.
Right. And do they come out better?
In addition to your time, you come out better criminal maybe.
Right, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But we don't do anything for people in that regard. So I am not a
fan of it.
I have very strong feelings about the incarceration system. Having said that, somebody's got to figure it out then, and it's the governor and the legislature are going to have to figure out. Then what are you going to do? Because people are not at all happy with the failure to keep them safe.
Do you have a solution for it?
That's in there.
Do you have a solution for it?
No.
I mean, what is the word is solution? Do you have? We hear that word a lot.
Well, you know what I say?
Right.
Like, in life, you get, this is my number, you get 50 mugshots. And after 50,
Yeah.
you're kind of done. You know, it's like it's.
You should love that
that's, that's when you aren't allowed to be a part of society. Like there should be a number of mug shots.
Here's the shot we've got, though. Here's the chance we've got. Let's assume for a moment that at least I'm partially right, because I'm hardly ever right, but
Yeah,
give me
some you're
credit that I
partially right.
Might be partially right.
I'm
So
giving you
let's
more
see
credit.
that some portion of the solution here, from the governor's point of view, either this governor, the next governor, and the legislature is, well, there needs to be more done at the county level. Let's just say that's what they say. They don't say really go build more county jails. There needs to be more done at the local level. That could be quite good. That could be quite good.
Yeah.
If that was tied with funding authority and so on, whether it's given or you can get it, whatever. We'll worry about those details later. But it could be a real opportunity to say, I don't think the voters said, I want the worst imaginable prison system in the democratic world. That's what I want. I want the worst. They didn't say that.
Right.
And so I think, given how horrible the prison system is, that if there is a significant part of this Prop 36 implementation that's going to take place at the local level, then LA County, whatever it is you got to figure out and do. But Santa Cruz County, let us do our thing. Let us do it the way we think it should be done.
Yeah.
A county jail doesn't need to be a small version of a state prison. It doesn't have to be. It can be very different, much better. The incarceration system, the crime and punishment system, we operate locally. There probably are a number of things you can do with drug, alcohol, and mental health that make all the sense in the world and can be quite helpful to somebody.
Yeah.
But I don't know anything about the person who came in and
Right.
stole your stuff and
Terrorize
so on.
my female
But
employee.
I'm willing to believe, look, not every one of these people is look, there are bad people in the world. There really are bad people in the world. There are people who don't really care about other people's property or physical well-being or anything else, and they commit crimes, and the heck with it. There is a role for the criminal justice system to incarcerate people. There is a role for that. Not everybody, but there is a role for that. So if this movement by the voters, were mad about the imbalance in crime and punishment, and we want it to improve. I want my retail business to feel safe. I want my customers. I want my family to feel safe in the community. I want that. Then we could have a real opportunity here over the next 3, 5, 7 years to reshape how we deal
To
with
turn it
in
around.
Santa Cruz.
Right.
And be in the same way, think about this. From 1978 to about 1998, maybe even 2008, the city and county of Santa Cruz led the state on managing growth. Let's not debate the issue about what became of all, why did, what were all the consequences, good, bad, and indifferent, but we led the state on that,
In growth.
okay, in managing growth.
Yeah.
78 to about 2008. Since then, when the state started changing all these laws, we have figured out how to become what only 5% of the cities in the state of California have been designated by the state of California, and that is a pro-housing designation for us. What if we also aspire, how can we do it really well? What if we took that same intelligence we've got in our community and applied it to the issue of crime and punishment?
Yeah.
We are smart people. We're compassionate people. We're not chumps.
Speaking of
We're not
smart,
chumps.
can I mention one thing here? Speaking of smart people,
Yes.
and I would like you to comment on this. This is from a listener who said, "Make crime a crime again."
That's my quote.
Lorna Campion said that. Is she stealing your line?
She is stealing
Oh,
my
man.
But you know what? I will allow that. But that's a bit of my philosophy. Is like
make
you know,
crime a crime again.
you know, when my generation was a child,
How old are you?
61.
Okay.
And if you went to the grocery store and you pocketed a candy bar and you got stuck, you know what I mean? Like, there was consequences for it. You became an example. You were sat down as a child and like, you know, pretty much reprimanded and taught about your mistakes.
Can't do that anymore.
And I feel like we've lost that a little
Can't
bit
do that
as a
anymore.
society, you know, and I really do think that it's time that a crime is a crime again, because that will help future generations. You know, we're dealing in a time right now where crime's not a crime. Crime is a slap on the hand right now, and you're free to do more crime, and it's become a gigantic problem in society that's affecting people's safety in their mind, safety at their workplace, and it's become a huge problem. And I really feel that we have to. I feel like we have to sacrifice a little bit right now to make future generations get back on course, because we've lost control. I feel like, as a business owner and a member of society, and you know, windows are smashed in their cars. You can't park anywhere at night anymore. I mean, life's like so tragic. And a little bit of what happened.
Do you calculate thievery in your?
Absolutely, it's gigantic,
Right.
and I feel like a little bit of what's going on is what allowed what's happening in politics for one party to manipulate to their advantage, and to scare people that were losing control and let me fix it. Whether or not that happens, I feel like that's a little bit. I'm going to scare you to think we've lost control. Vote for me, I'll fix it. Whether or not that happens, and I don't think it will, because this problem's gigantic. But I feel like we're at a point in our lives where we have to fix it to make future generations better.
Yeah, I think my team, if you will, speaking on a partisan level now rather than as mayor, speaking as partisan, I think my team lost its way in certain regards on this question. And I think where the way got lost was, it is intelligent, there's a difference between being tough on crime and being smart on crime.
I agree.
Right? Same thing, practically any other issue, right? And so what does smart on crime look like? Well, it probably involves many ends of this continuum, which starts with, how do you do good crime prevention? Well, some of what you're talking about, what happens in the home, what are the values that are instilled from generation to generation? How does that also work in the school? How does that work in our culture, in our society? There's a lot of responsibility for how you deal with that. As we move along and thinking about smart here, which is part of my trouble with the concept of make America great again.
Mm-hmm.
The implication is, A, we're not great, which I'd be glad to debate that point. But again implies that there were a certain set of things we used to do in the past, and if we just went back to those, things would be better.
Yeah.
I've always had that grates on me, that sort of make America great again. I think it's great now. I think we can make it greater going forward. But it isn't by going back and doing things we used to do necessarily.
Right.
I get some of these, like you're talking about. You and I are, I'm 74, you know, that's how I grew up too.
Sure.
And, you know, fair enough. Not everybody grows up that way, and that's a problem. But smart on crime from a governmental point of view. I'm not going to solve every problem in every home and you know, the vast cultural issues. But my team lost its way. It got to a point where, you know, it's like there's no bad people. There's just people who, you know, had unfortunate things happen to them in their life and circumstances and so on. And so they can't really be entirely held responsible for their actions. And, you know, we need to nurture them and help them get on the right path in life. And I think that when I was in the legislature, there was more than a little bit of that as an attitude, as an approach. And I get it, because it was coming out of an approach that was, the only thing you do is lock people up.
Right.
That was just as wrong as nobody needs to be locked up. There's no bad people. There's just people who've had unfortunate circumstances. So I think what you're talking about, I'm not interested in going back. I'm interested in going forward. How is it that those values, and I think that's what the voters are saying in Prop 36. Government, listen, elected officials, we're not where you think we are, maybe. We really do want, we the voters want real action on this. Give us real solutions, because Prop 36 did not give you a solution.
Right. It just said you can now call it.
These behaviors are now felonies.
Right.
Make it work.
Right.
That once you touch that, it implicated in that is everything upstream and downstream from there, and how we're going to deal with it. Woe to the Democrat who said, they didn't mean that in my community. I know it's really not that. People don't really think that in Santa Cruz. Santa Cruz City voters approved Prop 36. They approved it. It's a statement about their safety.
Yes.
And so I think, again, I go back to this. I think that our opportunity here is I don't see solution to this, to the voter issue around Prop 36. Who knows what the federal government's going to do? I don't know.
Yeah.
But the state government, I think there's going to be precious little. At least I think the governor will dip his toe in and see how the voters react in the budget that's released on January 10th.
Yeah.
But if the voters want real action on this, I'm not sure that they know what they mean when they say, I want real action on it.
Yeah.
Well, and let's go back to, our current county prison jail, they're sleeping in plastic boats.
It's horrible.
There's not a bunk bed available in the whole place.
No.
And I agree with you. It's one thing to say, yes, let's vote for change. It's another thing to say, where does the money come to make the change?
And
and that's a critical thing.
Well, and the money is in pursuit of some objective. You're going to spend the money on something. It isn't just where does the money come from.
Mental health.
Money isn't the solution per se. It's money spent intelligently. And this Board of Supervisors, I suspect in the next year or two, the outgoing sheriff and the incoming sheriff both are believers in the current jail is outdated. It's
Roundtree?
Yeah,
No,
sure.
no, I'm talking about the one on Ocean Street.
the one on Ocean Street,
Water Street Jail.
Yeah.
It's really.
I've toured it multiple times.
Yeah.
I had a friend that was one of the lead guys down there.
But I think you're going to see. I think you'll see that there will be throughout the state. There will be somehow through some funding source an
Changes.
increase in the number of county jail beds.
Yeah.
I think that's going to happen.
Yeah.
Then the question is, that isn't the solution. It can't possibly be. The voters do want people to do time for committing felonies. So that means you have to build more either state prison beds or county jail beds. And the state isn't going to build more state beds. So it's going to be jail at the county jail level.
Yeah.
And remember when they changed the deal where the non-third strike, non-sexual offender, non-violent, state sentenced prisoners, in order to reduce the state's prison overcrowding problem about 10 years ago.
They stayed in ours.
Not only did did they not send them, they took state prisoners are now doing time in county jail.
Exactly. Yeah.
You're in for 10 years, so you've done 3, you're going to do 7 more in county jail.
Yeah.
Well, that's all the state's overcrowding problem
Yeah.
created.
Draining our
overcrowding
resources.
here. So now, so it makes no sense for the sheriff to arrest your $900 shoplifter, or the DA to prosecute her or whoever it is, because the sheriff's going to say, who do you want me to let go?
Right.
Judge, who do you want me to let go so that this person can do time?
It's
How do you
funny
think-
What do you
because
got in mind?
well, and I also say this because as an employer, a lot of my employees are first-time jobs, and I say to a lot of my friends, I teach these kids how to work because it's not happening in the home. And to take a full circle back to affordable housing, to survive in this town, most families, both parents work.
You bet.
And so what happens is their children run free. And nobody is telling them your after school activities are right or wrong or paying attention to it. And that's oftentimes where that problem starts.
Just be careful about using all or nobody or whatever.
Right.
But I know what you mean. I know what you mean.
I'm a skateboard shop. I see kids come in all the time, and they're bragging about their after-school activities. That if I was a parent, I'd be like, "No, you're going in your room." And so unfortunately, we're sort of creating this atmosphere of potential problems and unaccountable problems. And so it goes back to full circle. It's going back to the classroom, having more qualified teachers that instill these morals and ethics. It goes back to the parents who are so busy working, they come home and straight to a cocktail. Hey, kid, go play your video games, to instill these ethics and morals.
I have an interesting. I wonder about part of what you said. I think it's the parents and the family responsibility primarily to establish what the values are in their family and
But do they know what they are themselves? Do the parents know what they are themselves?
They may or may not have any, or they have a different set than you have, or whatever
Right.
it is. And the school has gone from a place where we expect them to educate our children to a place where we expect the school to be everything for them.
Or protect.
And what I know, well, here's what I mean. What I mean is an interesting exercise you may want to do sometime is call up your local school and ask them to show you what they are required to do by law, what they are required to do during 1 week period of time. And you look at how much we expect now out of school teachers to be a social service worker, to be a teacher, to be a counselor, to be a substitute parent, to be what we expect out of school teachers is extraordinary. And I'd be okay if we expected that, if we paid them $150,000 a year each.
Amen.
See, I have a dear friend. I have a dear friend. She's been here, come to our show. She's a middle school teacher in Salinas, lives in Aptos. She's scared to go to work. Some of the students are scary to her. They're throwing stuff at her, and her work regimen is just over. It's just that she goes, I can't handle it. I can't keep up with it. Right. You got that, and then you're scared to go to work. You know,
teachers today are the unsung heroes of this country.
Yeah.
They are, in my opinion, so underpaid. Yeah. So over the demand for what we expect from them.
And what is that a vestige of? When two professions were almost exclusively women for 150 years, teaching and nursing.
Yeah.
This is a vestige of that.
And they're both struggling occupations.
Woo-hoo.
Yeah. And the funny thing is, someone who's been married, and possibly my wife's still watching,
she said right here, she's watching.
We need to give women way more credit in this planet of what they actually are capable of doing. And
that's another wrong.
And anyone who's watching who's a male, they're always freaking right. It's crazy. Yeah, it's true. So,
Fred, thanks you.
I'm going to leave it with that today.
Yeah,
there you go.
Yeah, I will.
We're going to let him off the hook.
You'll get a hug and a kiss when you go.
She knows. I tell her all the time.
Fred, thank you. We got to have you.
Thank you, guys.
You got to come back. We hope it's one of your fun interviews. Your fun interviews of the year.
Thank you, my buddies.
You know,
Neil,
we love you. You know,
Fred, I gotta say, I like to say this with a lot of people in this town. We've had a lot of people that I feel like are the leaders. Thank you, because the winners are the ones who try, and you make entire adult life to make our lives better.
And you make very good sense, Fred.
Yeah,
and
congratulations, because people can complain. I always say, if you want to complain, then do something.
Register and vote.
Yes, do something, you know,
Our world.
and you have your entire career, and our town's really better for it, and the struggle's real, you know, the struggle's real, and we need people at the helm to make our lives better, and you are trying, so thank you for that. I look forward to getting. Yeah,
Makes the most sense.
I look forward to getting the updates as we move along.
Okay, I'll be back.
We've got a little sushi to bring home tonight.
Barbara's gonna love it.
Yeah, that's amazing. Lorna, I'll be home very shortly. Neil, thanks. That was show number. Do we have a number?
909, a lot.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
900 and some odd shows. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in to the Off the Lip podcast.
I think maybe Manu might be next week. Maybe,
Oh, Manu?
I don't know. I forget.
All right, well, that's great. Thank you, everybody.
We have a special show tomorrow night from the new gym. We got a special show tomorrow night.
Oh, can I go?
You're going.
Oh, I am going?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
I want to go. Yeah,
yeah.
hopefully Tim can. We'll see you
Talk-
guys tomorrow night. Stay tuned. Big show. New gym opening up here in town. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in tonight. Fred Keeley, the Honorable, the Mayor. What a great show tonight.
Thank you.
Awesome. Neil, we'll see you soon.
Yep.
Good night, everybody. See you next time on the Off Lip Radio Show.